A prime minister, a secret document, and a king who just shattered 70 years of royal silence. What happened in the last 72 hours could change Britain forever. 3 days ago, Prime Minister Keir Starmer walked into a Brussels conference room. He told Parliament it was routine diplomacy. He told the public it was about climate talks. But leaked documents now reveal he signed a memorandum acknowledging EU authority over British courts without telling anyone. Not Parliament, not his cabinet. And critically, not King Charles. If you want to see how this story ends, hit subscribe. Because what happens next involves constitutional law most people didn't know still existed. The leak came from inside the EU bureaucracy itself. A senior negotiator, shocked by what they witnessed, described Starmer's approach as negotiating from a position of defeat. The memorandum grants Brussels jurisdiction over trade disputes, environmental regulations, and digital standards. Effectively, Britain would accept European court rulings as binding. This wasn't a trade adjustment, this was constitutional surrender, signed in secret. Within hours, Downing Street went into lockdown mode. 3 junior ministers resigned before sunrise. Foreign Secretary David Lammy was photographed entering number 10 at 6:47 a.m, emerging 37 minutes later without speaking to press. Security footage shows him visibly shaken, but the real earthquake was happening at Buckingham Palace. At 4:17 p.m. on Tuesday, King Charles III received the leaked documents in his private study at Windsor Castle. Palace sources, who have never spoken on record about the monarch's private reactions, described what happened next as unprecedented. The king read 3 pages, then reportedly threw the folder across the room, demanding to know, has he lost his mind? For 2 hours, Charles paced his study. He summoned his Privy Council lawyers. He invoked a constitutional principle most Britons have never heard of, the sovereign's right to be consulted on matters affecting the Crown's constitutional role. By 7 p.m, an emergency session was called at Windsor. The King made his position clear. He would not remain silent while the constitutional framework built over centuries was dismantled behind closed doors. Royal historians noted something critical. The last time a British monarch intervened this forcefully in government affairs was 1936. We all know how that ended, but while Westminster descended into chaos, the real victims were far from London. Jack Williams is 63. He worked 40 years in the Hartlepool steel mills before they closed. In 2016, he voted leave, not because he hated Europe, but because he wanted Britain to control its own future. We were told we'd left, Jack said outside his local pub, surrounded by neighbours who feel the same. Now they're sneaking us back in through the back door. Who gave them permission? His sentiment echoes across Sunderland, Grimsby and dozens of towns that voted overwhelmingly for Brexit. These aren't political radicals, they're people who believed in a promise. Now contrast that with Brussels. EU commissioners earn £15,000 per month. Tax-free, they fly business class. They work in buildings with private gyms and subsidised restaurants. The optics are devastating. Working class Britain versus tax-free European elites. Labour's phone lines in these constituencies haven't stopped ringing. One MP admitted privately, we've lost the red wall again. And this time, they're not coming back. Financial markets don't care about politics, they care about stability. And Wednesday morning, stability evaporated. The pound dropped 3.7% against the dollar in 90 minutes. The FTSE 100 plunged 287 points, erasing £47 billion in market value. Government bond yields spiked as investors pulled £122 billion in a single trading session. Currency traders called it a constitutional risk premium. Translation: global markets don't trust Britain's government to follow its own rules. Sarah Chen owns a textile factory in Manchester. She exports to both EU and non-EU markets, navigating 2 sets of regulations. If we're partially back under EU law, but still technically out, we're trapped in regulatory purgatory, she explained. I can't plan. I can't invest. I might have to close. Multiply Sarah's story by thousands of businesses. This isn't abstract politics. This is jobs, pensions, futures. Inside Labour, the party is tearing itself apart. Pro-EU MPs quietly defend Starmer, arguing closer European alignment makes economic sense. But Brexit-supporting Labour members, yes, they exist, are openly calling for his resignation. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves disappeared from public view for 27 hours. No statements, no tweets, nothing. Westminster sources suggest she's been in emergency meetings discussing whether to break ranks. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was reportedly heard shouting behind closed doors, "You've killed us! You've killed the entire party!" WhatsApp groups with names like Labour Survival are now coordinating potential leadership challenges. Civil servants are quietly drafting contingency protocols for government collapse. The BCS's Laura Kunzberg received texts from multiple Labour MPs threatening to resign the party whip if Starmer doesn't reverse course within 48 hours. Here's what most people don't know. King Charles has a power that hasn't been used in modern history, but legally it still exists. The sovereign can dismiss a prime minister. It's called the royal prerogative. It's never been exercised in peacetime during the democratic era, but constitutional lawyers confirm it's there. According to sources inside the Privy Council, the King has requested formal legal advice on the conditions under which this power could be invoked. The key phrase being examined is loss of constitutional confidence. If a Prime Minister acts in a way that fundamentally undermines the constitutional order and does so without parliamentary or royal consultation, does the monarch have not just the right but the duty to intervene? This isn't a coup. This is constitutional law written in 1689 after the Glorious Revolution established that no foreign power may exert authority over British subjects without Parliament's explicit consent. Starmer signed a document acknowledging foreign judicial authority. Without Parliament, without the Crown, the parallels are stunning. While Starmer struggles to control the fire, Conservative leader Rishi Sunak has positioned himself as the defender of constitutional order. The sovereignty of this nation and the integrity of our democracy are non-negotiable, as Sunak declared in an emergency address. If the Prime Minister cannot uphold these principles, he has no right to govern. The polls reflect the collapse. YouGov's emergency survey conducted over 48 hours shows Labour plummeting from 37% to 23% support. Conservatives rose to 34%. But the real shock, Reform UK surged to 21%. Nigel Farage, predictably, is capitalising. "I warned you," he said at a rally in Clacton. "The establishment never wanted Brexit. They've been plotting this reversal since 2016. Street protests erupted in 14 cities. Thousands gathered outside Parliament, waving Union Jacks and chanting, "Respect the vote." In Manchester, demonstrators burned Labour membership cards in a symbolic funeral pyre. Scotland Yard increased security around government buildings. Number 10 is effectively under siege, not from external threats, but from internal collapse. The world is watching. And reactions range from concern to mockery. The US State Department issued a carefully worded statement about democratic transparency and constitutional processes. Translation, even America is worried. France's Emmanuel Macron, when asked about the crisis, smirked. Britain is discovering that sovereignty is more complicated than slogans. Russian state media has broadcast hours of coverage portraying Britain as a failed democracy. Chinese diplomats expressed concern over political stability, the kind of statement Beijing issues when it senses weakness. This isn't just a domestic crisis. Britain's global credibility is collapsing in real time. So where does this end? Scenario 1, Starmer holds an emergency parliamentary vote seeking retroactive approval for the Brussels memorandum. He loses. A vote of no confidence follows. General election by spring. Scenario 2, King Charles exercises his constitutional prerogative, dismissing Starmer and calling for a government of national unity. Constitutional crisis, potential republic movement, chaos. Scenario 3, Labour forces Starmer out. Emergency leadership election, new PM distances from the deal, markets stabilise. But the damage to Labour's credibility lasts a generation. None of these scenarios are good. All of them are possible. Here's what we know for certain. Brexit was never just about economics. It was about identity, sovereignty, and the fundamental question, who governs Britain? For millions of voters, the answer was supposed to be we do, through Parliament under British law, with our own courts as final arbiters. Keir Starmer, in a Brussels conference room, signed a document that contradicts all of that. And he did it in secret, whether you supported Brexit or opposed it, whether you love the monarchy or question its relevance. This moment transcends those debates. This is about whether a Prime Minister can fundamentally alter Britain's constitutional relationship with foreign powers without telling anyone. And whether a king, after 70 years of silence, has the right or the duty to stop him. The next 48 hours will define Britain's political future. Parliament reconvenes tomorrow. The King's lawyers are preparing advice. Markets are waiting. And millions of voters are watching to see if their democracy still works. One thing is certain, we are witnessing a constitutional crisis unlike anything in modern British history. This story is moving fast. By the time you finish watching this, something new will have broken. If you want to stay ahead of what happens next, the emergency votes, the royal decisions, the political fallout, subscribe now. And here's my question for you. Did Starmer commit political treason, or is this constitutional reform Britain desperately needs? Comment below, because this isn't just a story about politicians. It's a story about what kind of country Britain wants to be. The answer to that question will be written in the next 48 hours, and I'll be covering every single minute.